Hello, everyone. Before we dive into today's episode, I wanted to remind you that my book, Drummers on Drumming, is available now on Amazon as both a paperback and an ebook. Based on the Big Fat Five segment of this podcast, where I sit down with my favorite drummers to discuss the 5 records and stories that shaped their approach to the instrument, this book is packed with insights from the drummers who redefined how we think about the modern drum set. You can grab your copy now by checking the link in this episode's show notes or simply searching Drummers on Drumming on Amazon. So thank you for all the support, and now let's get into the show.
Hey, this is Rory O'Connor, and I'm Ben's guest on this week's Big Fat Five.
What is up? Welcome back to Big Fat Five, a podcast financially supported by Big Fat Snare Drum. This week's guest is Rory O'Connor, a New York-based drummer for the Grammy-nominated band Tycho. He also makes his own electronic music under the name Nitemoves, spelled Nitemoves. Before joining Tycho, Rory played with Calm Truce, another legend in that world of music. But Rory is an insane drummer, and he brings the world of Tycho to life, both in the studio and figuring out how to recreate his own chopped-up grooves for a live setting in the most interesting way. With what I do with one of my projects, Cannons, I look up to Rory a whole hell of a lot. He's got great taste in music, and it's very apparent with the choices he's making when he's creating his own music and the 5 choices he brought on for today's show. So, hope you enjoy. Cheers. But yeah, I'm good to go, man.
Let's do it.
All right, so what role did music play in your house growing up?
Oh man, it was huge. My dad's a drummer. I listened to him playing a lot growing up. But I would say the bigger influence was just all the great music that my parents listened to. And it was always really, really diverse. You know, there was a lot of like Steely Dan being played, and my dad listened to Pat Metheny a lot, and like Michael Jackson, MC5.
Was that cool music to you growing up, or is that like, oh, that was your dad's music?
You know, I don't think I consciously thought about it too much. It wasn't like I liked it or disliked it, but now as an adult, you know, owning a lot of those records, it's just kind of like feel like I don't really have a choice but to like it, because whenever I hear it, it's just like, oh, you know, that's just like a Sunday afternoon at my house growing up. Both my mom and my dad, they have very eclectic, diverse tastes in music, and it wasn't really conscious at the time, but it probably didn't hurt pushing me towards playing music.
Was your dad your first drum teacher?
You know, I've never taken a lesson before. And I think he kind of like, you know, it was more of a hobby for him. Even, you know, he's a really, really, really outstanding drummer. But, you know, he was always trying to kind of steer me not towards, playing music as a job or as a career or
you don't want
whatever.
anything to do with this, Dewey.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, how did you first find Tycho? How'd that come about?
My good friend Jacob, who was the A&R for Ghostly for a long time, he originally set me up playing for Calm Truce, which was another Ghostly artist, another like electronic music guy at Ghostly. And I did that for a few years. And then Scott, Mr. Tycho, he had another drummer previously, but for whatever reason, he couldn't play with him anymore. so Jacob also made the introduction with me to Scott, and I had been listening to Tycho since like 2005 or 2006. So I was pretty familiar with not all of the material, but some of it. So he sort of made the connection, and I went out to San Francisco and we played some songs in his basement, and he was like, "Cool, you got the job." So that was.
Oh, so you officially auditioned for him?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, it was pretty informal. It was just like in his basement, and he was like, "Yeah, cool, great."
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's been a pretty long journey since then. It's almost, I think, a little over 10 years now. So it's crazy how time flies.
And can you talk a little bit about the process making the first record with Tycho, which was Awake, and then
Yes.
perhaps how it's changed over the years?
So Awake was really, really fun. I would say that's the only record we've done so far that was kind of like a truly like a band record where we went to a studio and Scott just had like a lot of kind of like sketches. A lot of them were just like 10-minute long sort of looping kind of things, and went into a studio and just kind of like jammed on them, the three of us, like sort of in different rooms. And then Scott went back and cut up like all kind of like treated the acoustic drums as like samples, and sort of chopped it all up and made some of the songs into breaks and whatever. But like that, when I listen to that album, that like I can hear my drumming, as opposed to like hits that were sampled and turned into like their own sort of like discrete patterns. There's stuff on there where I'm like, yeah, I remember playing that. And the two Epoch, which came after, that one was definitely a lot more heavily sort of like sampled and deconstructed. And I mean, there's some stuff on there that I can recognize as like stuff that I played, but it was a little bit more abstract. We've recorded, so we've done like so many sessions, and he has pretty much like this library at this point of like me playing. So it's like it's kind of hard to yeah, it's kind of a bizarre like listening experience because I'm not sure what came from where, but he has a big library of Rory playing drums at this point, so he kind of just like pulls a little chunk from here and there.
It's fun too listening to you guys. I think was it friends with Tycho or Tycho with Friends, like a YouTube kind of interview thing he was doing for a little bit.
The what was it called, the friendship discussions or something that. Yeah.
Well, no, there's an episode, I think it was one of the original one of the first ones, if not the first one, where you guys were kind of going over a little bit of kind of sessions and whatnot, and just seeing you guys going like, did we ever go back to that studio, or was that it's just like, dude, I totally relate. It's like it's all just one big blur.
Yes.
But I mean, speaking of that, and kind of how each record's a little bit different when it comes to drum stuff. I mean, there is a through line obviously with Tycho's stuff, but is there ever any, and when I say friction, I mean it in a good way, with like, you kind of want to do this more kind of style with the drumming, and he's like, well, this one is, I want to make an attempt to do this process for this record. Is there any sort of friction that then becomes this third thing that was never what he thought originally?
Well, I mean, it is like kind of it's like a pretty abstract process, because a lot of times if we're recording a song, he'll have some sort of like drum idea that's already in there as like sort of a scratch idea. And then, so that's kind of my reference point for like, we're going to record a beat or whatever. And then, so then I record that, and then he in turn takes that and chops it up even more. So then when it comes time to like playing the shows live, it's sort of like, it's kind of like me playing what I played, but like in like a totally like rearranged form. So it's kind of weird. It's weird at times, like sort of playing over a superimposed like version of me that's not me, but then like having to relearn like what I played in sort of a different way. It's kind of weird. I usually don't think about it until it's time to like play the songs live, and then it's like, oh, I have to like relearn what I played, but in a different just like different. Yeah, it's weird.
That is cool. Yeah, that's a mind trip for sure. Well, and then now, since your camera's not working right now, and I'm just seeing the word Nitemoves, this is a great transition to my next question. Before we get to your top five, which is just, can you talk a little bit about Nitemoves, your project, and kind of the songwriting process, since that is your thing?
Yeah, I mean, so that I started. I've been making like computer music since high school, basically, like when it was really, really, really rudimentary, like using like a 386 like Intel computer, and I think I was using like Cool Edit Pro and like Hammerhead or something like that, like really, really old.
I haven't heard words like that in a long time. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it was like simpler times for sure. Um, so that's been something I've been doing since I was a teenager. And then I think it was around 2009. I got hit by a yellow cab when I was living in Williamsburg. I was riding my bike and this cab just rolled through a stop sign. It was really wet. My brakes didn't work. And yeah, just went over the bars, over the cab, and broke my collarbone and tore my rotator cuff. And I don't remember any of it, but I woke up in a hospital, and I couldn't play drums comfortably for a good like year, a little more than a year. So at that point, I kind of like I was like, I don't know if I want to play drums anymore. I had played in a few bands, and like none of them were like super fun. Like playing at like Trash Bar and all these like awful Williamsburg venues. And so during that downtime, I just really like got really, really into just, making music in Ableton. So that was like sort of the starting point. And there was a point where I was like, I don't know if I want to play drums anymore. Like I like doing this a lot. And it was really like sort of liberating, like having like knowing so much about like how to play drums and like what I feel like a lot of electronic music sort of lacks that, just like the sensibilities of like what you would do as a drummer, but then also just having like control over you know like every aspect of the composition. It was really liberating as a drummer. Um and uh so yeah, I mean, it started with that. I think the first album came out in 2011, 2010. But that one I finished when I was on tour with Com Truise, and I was just bored in the backseat of the SUV we were touring in. I was just like working in headphones in the backseat. Yeah,
Was
ever
that
since. Sorry.
is a lot of your stuff in the box, or do you like to work with physical gear?
The first one I would say is almost entirely in the box until we got off tour. I had like a Juno in my room or something like that. So there was some Juno parts, and I had an ARP. So there's some ARP stuff. Oh, actually, no, I didn't have the ARP then. We were on tour, and that was with Purity Ring and Neon Indian, and we had a tour stop in Minneapolis, and we went to one of Corin's friends' houses in St. Paul, and they had an ARP set up in the living room. And I remember recording some of the stuff for the album, like um, onto my laptop, just with like a eighth-inch cable, like out of the ARP and into my laptop. So that the first one was pretty much entirely in the box. The second one, I recorded some real drums. I had a couple synths at that point. And then the last one, Don't Ask, was almost entirely hardware, and like recorded, through a big 16 channel mixer that I had in my house, and like actually like mixed it on the console. So yeah, it's been sort of a evolution.
That's rad, man. Everyone, go check out Nitemoves. It's wherever you would assume music would be. It sounds really rad.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, let's just get into your top five, man. So Number one, I'll just kind of list off the few little attributes about it, and then we'll listen to it, and then we can talk about it afterwards, but maybe just like 30, 40 seconds of it.
Rad.
And but yeah, so the album's Gish, came out in 1991. The artist is Smashing Pumpkins. The song choice is Rhinoceros, and the drummer is Jimmy Chamberlin. So here we go.
That guy's so good.
This beat is so cool. So simple, but so fun.
I mean, it's funny because like Melancholy came out in late 95, early 96 or something. And that was my first introduction to the Pumpkins. That was one of the first CDs I bought with my own money, and it was expensive because it was a double disc. I think it was like $30 or a lot of money for a 10-year-old. But this one, I didn't hear Gish until years later when I was going through a box of tapes. They were my dad's. He kind of just like went to, what was it, like Strawberries? He would go to Strawberries like once a week and just like buy a record. But this one I found, must have been in 8th or 9th grade or something like that. I was just sort of like going through the tapes, and I was like, oh, Smashing Pumpkins, like I like that band. Yeah, man, his I mean, it's just a much more like raw sort of like band album, and Big just as like a younger drummer, like you're not really interested in rudiments so much, and just hearing these like buttery, silky single stroke rolls, you're like, wow, okay, I understand that. I understand single stroke rolls. But yeah, this whole album is so good. With Jimmy, the thing that like I loved about his drumming so much that like I hadn't really thought about before was like he plays the song so well. Like he accents the melodies and the riffs, and his left foot is like always going. He's like doing these like little accented things with his left hand on the hi-hats when he's playing on the ride cymbal, and it's just like such a full drum sound. And that was like a huge inspiration as a, young drummer.
And I'm sure I know everyone talks about it with him, but he's like a jazz drummer that became a rock drummer, so he has this cool hybrid of a delicate touch, but he can still be really powerful.
Yes, very, very dynamic player. And his drums just sound so good.
Yeah. Yeah, so good,
I'm
man.
head bobbing. You can't see it, but I'm head bobbing.
Well, so yeah, number 2, your album is Shack Man. Release year is 1996, and the artist is Medeski, Martin, and Wood. Actually, Billy was a recent guest on the podcast. Where
I listened to the whole thing. That was so cool, man. That guy is like such a hero, and just like hearing him talk about man, that guy's so cool.
No, I was just writing notes the whole time. I was just like jotting down because, I think we ended up talking for like 40 minutes afterwards. He's such a kind guy.
True artist, like, man.
Yeah, his Instagram. Billy Martin, by the way, is the drummer we're talking about. He is the Martin in Medeski, Martin, and Wood. The song you did choose is Spy Kiss. But his Instagram is so fun. I think it's Illy Beats.
Yes.
And it's just him just filming himself being weird. And again, I mean that very endearingly in the studio. It's really inspiring.
I mean, this one, it was really hard to pick one song. So I kind of just like threw a dart at the wall, and I was like, this one. But
Sure.
I started listening to them when I was in high school after getting involved in like the school music program, like jazz combo, jazz ensemble and stuff. So we were playing a lot of sort of straight ahead stuff. I can't peg who introduced me to them or when I first heard them, but it was probably around like my freshman or sophomore year in high school. And it's one of those bands that just found me at a time when my brain was just like primed to love it. But there's sort of like fusion between kind of like corny funk and sort of out there jazz, and like sort of like packaging it in this sort of like palatable way. I became like really, really obsessed. I've probably seen them like 30 something times. That was like over a 6 year period.
Wow.
They don't play anymore, unfortunately, or like very, very rarely. But yeah, huge influence on me as a drummer. Just his like after I sort of became more educated in jazz, like you can hear, like he knows all of it. He knows all the players, and you can hear Elvin in some things that he does, and you can hear, yeah, I mean, just so many players. And it sort of opened my mind to like playing over the bar, or like metric modulation, like sort of like turning 4/4 into 6/8 or whatever. And yeah, as a teenager, it was a very profound impact.
Mm-hmm. Let's listen to Spy Kiss.
It was also really cool. Like the first drum set I had was one that my dad gave me, which was like an old kind of ratty Slingerland with like the rounded over bearing edges. And like when I first got into drums, like I wanted to play like Green Day, I wanted to play like Smashing Pumpkins, Operation Ivy, like wanted that like sort of like low thuddy tom sound. And like Slinger, or this set of Slingerlands just didn't really do that. So I was always like kind of like frustrated. I was like, oh, I want a new drum set, I want a Pearl Export or whatever. And then hearing Billy, and then also like Rage Against the Machine, he has this really what's his name,
Brad Wilk.
Yeah, just like a really, really great open drum sound. And then hearing people with that sound, like just like killing it, I'm like, okay, that's cool. It's cool.
Yeah,
I like this drum set. It sounds really good.
And also Billy kind of plays those older looking, kind of like ratty looking drum
Rogers,
sets.
there's a Rogers Tower, which I had a set of those for a while. They were the best drums I ever had. I wish I still had them.
Yeah, I have a set of Rogers Holiday Toms.
Oh.
But I need to get a matching bass drum. It's like a ginger glitter.
They're the best vintage drums. Like,
they're so heavy. Mine are heavy.
Yeah.
The floor tom's like a brick.
Yeah. Old wood.
Mm-hmm. That snare sounds so rad.
It's so good. He has my favorite ride cymbal sound ever, and he still plays it. It's I think it's an old K or something like that. It sounds so good.
It would have been so perfect if he went to the ride right then.
I mean, that's one of the things I love about Billy. Is like, you're like, oh, you should go to the ride right there, but he doesn't. He just doesn't do it. He like plays a weird fill like on one.
Yeah, I love that sentiment you said, and I've thought about it quite often. you were just mentally, I'm paraphrasing what you said, but just mentally and emotionally prepped for Medeski, Martin, and Wood when they came into your life. It was just perfect timing.
Yep.
It's
I
just
mean, so many, all these albums really, like, I was just like ready and waiting, and then you hear it and you're just like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck is this?
And it's just like, I wonder if like, I'm a huge fan of Levon Helm and the band.
Oh man!
But as a kid, I was like, yeah, give me more Travis Barker. What are you talking about?
Yep.
And so I'm like, but man, wait, what if? I'm happy where I'm at. There's a lot of things that I do as a drummer that have nothing to do with that kind of music that I now can do because I grew up with fast, SoCal punk rock. But it's like, I wonder if I would have just been
those
like
Orange County drums.
Exactly.
Are they still around?
I think Daniel still like will make them for certain people.
The snares with like the 4-inch holes in them.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's like, I wonder if I would have just at a certain time or a certain month, someone introduced me to music from Big Pink, and just that would have been my trajectory. It's like, how different, not to be all like grandiose, but my life would be completely different. So it's just like certain records hit you at certain times, and they do change your life.
I mean, going back to what you were asking me about, like the music my parents listened to. Like, I remember my parents listening to Dire Straits. Probably my dad. Well, no, my mom likes Dire Straits too. But like, I distinctly remember being like, this music sucks. And like, when I hear Sultan Swing come on the radio now, I'm like, fuck yeah, this song fucking rules.
Exactly. I mean, I grew up on my dad's construction site with him, and so the oldies is, probably my childhood should have been like NSYNC, Britney Spears, Limp Bizkit, but for the most part, it was like CCR, Beach Boys,
Oh, love Creedence.
But yeah, it's just crazy. It blows me away how those little kind of 1% veers can change everything. But yeah, let's just go to number 3, and it's Live at the Village Vanguard. The release year is 1962, and the artist is the John Coltrane Quartet. You said in parentheses because it's actually quintet.
the album is the John Coltrane Quartet, but Eric Dolphy, he's the guy who plays bass clarinet. Like, he's on almost every song, so it's like, come on, it's not a quartet, it's a quintet.
It's like the original featuring Snoop Dogg,
right?
Featuring Eric Dolphy,
on bass clarinet.
And the song choice is Spiritual, and of course Elvin Jones, which I believe you just referenced. You could hear some of that in Billy's playing. So
he's the GOAT, greatest of all time. Just such a fucking amazing human and drummer.
So, yeah, no one plays like Elvin for sure. Nope. All right, so here we go. This is looks like the first track off this record.
I believe so. Yeah.
Just building so much tension.
Oh yeah. Yeah, like in high school, if you can imagine like a high school jazz program at a public school, like a lot of the you read out of the real book or whatever. Our band director Pat Kennedy, you're like introducing children to jazz for the first time, so they like kind of like throw the really kind of rudimentary. I don't want to say rudimentary, but the easy songs, like Impressions, which is basically one chord that then goes up a half step, whatever, and really fortunate that my dad listened to a lot of jazz, so like a lot of these records were just sitting around and I didn't know what was what, but kind of like the Coltrane stuff is so fucking cool because it's also like hypnotic. A lot of it's just like the same pattern, like over and over and over and over again. But Elvin's swing, like, you know, when you're like 14 years old and you're trying to wrap your head around like how to swing, hearing, it's not quite triplets, but it's just so round and like kind of just like propelling itself forward and forward and forward. Yeah, man.
I love that though. It's not triplets, it's just round.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little bit tighter than a triplet. Like sometimes it's a little flat and sometimes it's a little round. But his phrasing and just the way that, you know, he's just always listening. You can hear that he's always listening. Like it's hard to talk about. I'm trying to like put these thoughts into words, but it's like it's hard.
I know. It's like music notation only exists because you want to be able to communicate with people.
Right.
That's the only reason why it even exists. You want to be able to, you know, document things and communicate. But it's like the subdivisions he plays, he's like, okay, I'm communicating right now, so I don't care if it's like a triplet or if it's not or whatever. He's just like, I'm doing my own thing. Who knows what he was playing or what was going on in his head? He doesn't care. He's just expressing himself.
I mean, man, like I had some friends that went to like New School or Manhattan School of Music, and like I remember them telling me that they were transcribing an entire like Tony Williams, not the solo, like the whole song. They were just transcribing exactly what he did, and I'm like, man, what a fucking waste of time. That's such a silly thing to do. Just like listen to, I mean, or just like, you know, I always thought that was so weird. The academic side of jazz.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for certain people, not to play devil's advocate, because I agree with your sentiment, but it's like, I guess for some people, writing it that can maybe help them, but I don't know.
For sure.
I agree. That's not. It just seems like something to fill a semester. You know.
I mean, you know, it's like, was Elvin doing that for what? No. Like, no, like absolutely not. Or like, you know, just play, you know, just be yourself and play music. That's
You'd be a good teacher. Hey, so this is day one. Just play.
Fired.
Yeah, exactly. You all get A's, but also all get F's. Think about it. Bye.
Yeah, think about it. That's good.
All right. I mean, any more in Elvin? I mean, it's we could talk forever.
Man, that was another one where it was like so hard to pick one song. I guess I didn't want to like I don't know what the demographic of this podcast is, so I didn't want to subject.
We're all over the place, literally. We had an episode, well, actually the one that will have come out before this one, and people were supposed to contacted me about a certain top 5, and I was just kind of getting to know my audience a little more, and it's all over the place. So we have English teachers, we have punk rockers, we have it's insane, all over the place.
English teachers, they're not gonna like me.
That's what I was joking. I was like, dude, I stumble and bumble over every intro, and I like edit it afterwards, and I'm like, you have to put it for the show notes. I'm like, I don't know how to write, so interesting.
Yeah. The way I talk, there's a lot of unnecessary commas for sure.
Me too,
yeah. Elvin, I guess like I think so. I've only taken one drum lesson in my whole life, and it was from this guy Brad Barr, who played in this band called The Slip, and now he plays with his brother Brad in this group called the Barr Brothers. They were based out of Boston, and my good friend Ryan Jalbert, amazing guitar player, he drove me out to Boston. He sort of set the whole thing up because he kind of knew Brad and Andrew, and he drove me out to Boston, and I took an hour long lesson with Andrew, and taught me like a lot of it. It was really cool because it wasn't like a drum lesson where like play this. He showed me African bembe notations, which are just like usually they're it's a grid of 12 because most of the patterns are you know, triplet based or whatever you want to call it. And instead of you know, standard notation, they're just dots. And Billy Martin, he has this whole thing about like his he made a book about it. They're like clave patterns, like African clave patterns. But it was just so cool because it was so simple, and it's like one line is what your right hand is doing, the other line is what your left hand is doing, and then the bottom line is what your right foot is doing. So they're just, if there's a dot, you play. If there's not a dot, you don't play anything. So he showed me that, and that was like really, really eye-opening, just playing these sort of like clave patterns, and sort of like breaking them out across the drum kit. And like as I went on to like teach lessons later, that like sort of style of notation was extremely useful. And like especially with younger students, they got it. It's not all these like weird lines and X's and flags and all that sort of stuff. But the other thing that he recommended to me was to pick up this book, The Art of Bop Drumming, by John Riley, I believe is John Riley, who was a Manhattan school teacher. And so I got really, really into that book. Very digestible for anybody who's like just like trying to sort of like just get into not just jazz music. It's a great drum book. But so as I was like going through all that stuff, that's sort of when I started listening to Coltrane, and like having like attempted these like exercises in this book, and then it's like, oh well, he's like referencing a lot of these like Elvin Jones things, and then like hearing it, I'm like, oh shit, like that's what it's supposed to sound like. It's what it's supposed to sound like. Yeah, it was just pretty much anything John Coltrane did from the beginning of his career to the really, really late weird stuff. It's just it's beautiful. I love it so much.
What's the name of that African rhythm that you were referencing?
Bembe patterns, or like they're sort of like extrapolated clave patterns.
Okay.
A lot of times it's the same pattern, and then it's like permutated on the other hand, and the right foot is sort of keeping an ostinato underneath it. And like just by changing that ostinato, you can either make it feel like a 6/8 thing, or like sort of like a modulated 4/4 thing where the right and left hand are sort of like floating over. Yeah, it's really cool.
All right, so number 4, the album is Port Rhombus EP, and the release year is 1996. Artist is Square Pusher. The song choice is Point Rhombus, and the drummer is there's no drummer.
There's no drummer.
Tom Jenkinson. It's his mad brain. Is the drumming on this? So, yeah, let's just listen to a little bit of the song, and then we can go from there.
I remember a friend had burned me like a CD. You remember those when you burn people's CDs?
I think so, yeah.
And there was a bunch of other stuff on it, but I was like on the town I grew up in is like kind of rural, and I remember driving home in my '94 Volkswagen Passat, and this was somewhere in the middle, but I distinctly remember this song coming on, and I was like, holy fucking shit. Like, fuck drums. Like, this is where it's at. I think there's a lot of similarities between this sort of like drum and bass programming and like up-tempo bop, but like
sure.
Hearing this, I was like, oh, this is like impossible. It's like physically impossible. And that was like, it was so fascinating to me. And then of course, now there's like kids there's like 8-year-olds who can play this sort of stuff, which is just both amazing and depressing at the same time. I'm like, oh God. This was definitely Square Pusher, like, generally was a huge reason that I wanted to start writing music on a computer. I was like, this is so far out. And it's just so detailed, man. The song's like 8 minutes long, and he programmed every single little step like, and it doesn't repeat itself. Like, every little bar is like bespoke, and man, it's like that guy's crazy.
I mean, I don't even know how you would begin to program stuff like this. Does he do it? I mean, maybe but like at a slower tempo and then he speeds it up, or
probably, dude. He did all this shit on a fucking Dr. Rhythm, like those 90s like beat machines that are made for like like a guitar player practicing. Like it has like and basically any piece of gear he's ever gotten his hands on, he's just like pushed to like impossible limits that like they weren't designed to do. I don't I would love to have been a fly on the wall when he was working out stuff like this. It's funny. So you bring this up. So Ian Maciak was a huge advocate. God, dude. Yeah, that's basically who I'm talking about. That guy's he's just out of control.
Well, he was a huge advocate to get you on the show. He's a huge fan of you, man. Oh,
man. He's my favorite drummer in the world right now. Guy is just like so inspiring. And like, I think we're living in kind of a weird time where, because he's putting clips of himself on the internet every single day. And it's like, you are the fly on the wall. And he's just like, he's playing drums and making music every single day. It's really humbling, really, really humbling. He's such a talent.
He is. A little self-promotion. Ian's been on the show, so go check out that. If you guys, Ian hits drums. If you guys don't, be surprised if you aren't aware of him. But he's amazing. He has a really cool mustache too, and I appreciate that.
Very cool mustache.
All right, so number 5, we're just blazing through these, is going to be the album. And I love Justin is an amazing drummer. But the album is You Forgot It in People. And the release year is 2003. The artist is Broken Social Scene. A very, I don't want to say underrated band because so many people know them, but I do think they're an underrated group of musicians. And they're such a unique entity.
Cult. They're like a cult.
Exactly. Yeah, it's calling them a band is such an understatement. It's hard to describe them that way. But the song choice is Pacific Theme, and just like you said, there's 25 people in the liner notes, and half of them play drums. But at least later on, I know Justin was the main dude, Justin Peroff. But
that sounds right.
But yeah, let's just play this song, and then we can talk about it. This feels backwards, doesn't it, from where you want it to be?
Yep. Yeah, I swear to God, I've heard the song like thousands and thousands of times, and every single time the downbeat drops, I'm like, oh, there it is. Yeah, this one's kind of a swerve from the rest of the songs, but like this, again, going back to my friend Ryan, the guy that brought me to that drum lesson in Boston. I moved out to Colorado where he was living, and he turned me on to Broken Social Scene. He was like that. This album was a couple years old at that point. This is like 2006, but I think he was just playing it in the car or something like that, and I was like, holy shit, this is so. I just remember hearing this drum sound, and I was like, how do you do that? Like, how, like, it kind of sounds like he's hitting the drums really, really hard, but like now, like 37-year-old Rory is like, it's extremely compressed. Like,
yes.
To the point where like most engineers probably would say no if you told them to compress the drums this much. But it's like the combination of playing softly and smashing the fuck out of the drums with compression. And like, there's passages in the song where it's just drums and you're like, oh, that's too much. But then when you hear it with the whole band, it's just like, it gels. It just sounds, it was like a moment where I was like, I want to figure out that drum sound. Like, I want my drums to sound like that. hope we have enough time to get to that one. There's like one massive fill in the song that's just like, it's the coolest drum fill I've ever heard.
Let's just keep listening.
It's definitely like the overheads are being side chained off the kick drum. So like every time he hits the kick and the hats at the same time, does that like.
Yep.
Almost there. Here it comes. Ah, so good. So good.
Yeah, this band's so good.
It's the 10-year anniversary of this album coming out this year. They're out on tour. I hope I can see them at some point.
Oh, wow, okay. Yeah.
Such a great record.
That would be so fun to play in a band like that. Just like so many crazy minds. Just an ensemble for sure.
It's definitely, one of the band, like Tortoise or who you listen to it and you're like, oh, I wish I played drums in this band. But then like, how would you know what to do? Like without even like, you think you'd be good at it because you heard somebody else do it already. It's like one of those catch-22 sort of things.
Exactly. Well, speaking of Tortoise, so that was your top 5. I did want to play one of your honorable mentions, and this is a band. I'll be honest, I'm not really familiar with Tortoise.
What?
So I know.
Oh
I know.
Man.
Which is why I love this podcast, because I find so much music that I haven't known, and then hopefully someone that's listening also is like, I'm happy he said who the hell's Tortoise, because I don't know who the hell Tortoise is. So let's just listen to Tortoise. The song is It's All Around You from the album It's All Around You. Or maybe that was just the whole record. Was there a certain song on that record that you wanted to play?
That song's pretty good. The entire record is fucking amazing, man. Like all their stuff is so good. Like especially like, I don't know. Yeah. It's definitely, there's a lot of really, really good drums on all their songs.
All right, so yeah, this is the titular track from the 2004 record, It's All Around You by Tortoise. Here we go.
This is one of those ones, like I remember the first time hearing it, I'm like, what's going on here? Like where's the downbeat? What is the time signature? And it kind of like, there's definitely 2 drum sets going on, like as like a lot of their music has 2 drum sets. But like it sort of floats in this, like one guy's playing 3/4 and the other guy is like playing like this sort of ostinato 4/4 thing. And yeah, and then eventually like the downbeat like becomes apparent. I just remember being like, oh, holy shit. Like I had no idea what I was listening to for the last 45 seconds.
Yeah, I'm like nervous to bob my head because I'm like, I don't know.
There's like a interesting, what is it? It was when Tchaikovsky debuted the Rites of Spring in Paris. Like people like that was like some of the most like abstract music that had been played in public up to that point. And like your brain wants to hear patterns, and it wants to understand things. And when your brain can't understand things, usually it releases serotonin and dopamine to placate the brain, because it just like doesn't understand. So anyway, they debuted right to Spring, and the crowd rioted, and they like tore the theater down and smashed chairs and punched each other. Sort of a tangent, but like when I hear music like that, where I'm like trying to figure it out, and I'm like, I don't hear it, and then all of a sudden the downbeat clicks, and you're like, holy shit, that's so fucking cool.
No, I love that. I'm with you. Yeah, me and Gunnar Olsen, and we've had a few podcasts on here where we just bring in songs. It's called "Where's the One," and it's songs that we've just throughout our career, we've just like, I never knew where the one was until now. I can't not hear the one, but when I first heard it, it's like, what the hell's going on?
Yep. There's so many. There's so many of those.
Well, I mean, I'm sure you do things outside of Nitemoves and Tycho. So what? I mean, that's your to kind of bow end the show here, or put a nice little bow on it. Maybe talk about a little bit about what you've been doing. If you want to talk about anything you're releasing, or you can just say, "No, I'm good, man. Have a good day."
I mean, I've been plugging away slowly on another Nitemoves album the last one came out in 2016. So yeah, 8 years. It's a little embarrassing, and I feel like I don't want to say it's depressing, but I get notes from fans every once in a while, and they're like, "When are you going to make a new album? When are you going to make a new album?" And I am trying. I'm trying as hard as I can. And hopefully, I have an ambient record that's done, and I'm going to try and put that out in the next month or two. I take a lot of photos. That's just like another, I don't want to say hobby, because that makes it sound casual. It's like a pretty big part of my life. I love taking photos. So doing a lot of that, me and my fiance Audrey, she just got a large format printer, so we're hoping to start like printing some photos, and like
that's
I've
awesome,
never done that before, so that's really exciting, and looking forward to getting into that. Outside of music and photography, play a lot of tennis. Again, with Audrey, she kicks my ass every single time. But
that's me and my girlfriend's like main sport we do together as well. I love it.
It's the best, man. It's so much fun. And like I kind of feel bad for like, I guess if you're a soccer player, you can kind of just like kick a ball around, but like you need 25 dudes to like play soccer and tennis. Like I guess it's finding a court can be sort of annoying sometimes, but you just need a racket, couple balls, and one other person that you can stand to be 90 feet away from for an hour and a half. So my bandmate Billy, he plays everything. He's an outstanding keyboard player, guitar player, bass player. Okay drummer. He's an okay drummer, but he's an extremely good tennis player. So he's kind of the tour tennis partner. Mm-hmm. And he's always told me that you have to have 3 friends that you play tennis with. Like one that's a little bit worse than you, one that's pretty much the same as you, and one that's slightly better. And once you get outside of that sort of zone, it's not fun. Like if you're playing against like a beginner, it's not fun. And if you're playing against like someone who's just going to wallop on you for 90 minutes, it's also not fun. You don't learn anything from getting your ass kicked like bagels,
He should make that into like a chicken soup for the soul kind of book. Like, and what the friend that is better than you represents is, your dreams. And
well, I mean, it's like when you play someone who's a little bit better than you, then you learn. You can actually like comprehend how they're better than you and how to sort of improve. If they're, like me playing someone who's like a 5-0 or something like that, they're gonna whoop my ass, and like I'm just gonna be so angry the whole time. I'm not gonna learn anything.
Well, on the 2 days I was off from tour between these two bands, we played tennis, and she has been taking lessons. And the good thing is that we're basically on par, but because she's taking lessons, her coach is disassembling everything she's known, and she's starting from scratch with better form. So she's so bad right now.
Yeah.
So I kicked her ass so much, and I was like, all right, sweet, peace, babe. I'm gonna go back on tour. Yeah, dude, I'll let you go, man. But I'll hit you up when I'm in town, and then we'll make something happen.
It was really great talking to you, man.
Dude, ditto, man.
Thanks for having me.
All right, bye, dude.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.
And that's the show. If you're listening on a platform that allows ratings and reviews, do that. It helps more people find the show, so it'll get bigger and better, and hopefully I'll have a chance to sell out one day. But you'll be an OG listener that can brag to all your friends. Anyways, why don't you go and check us out at bigfatsnaredrum.com and follow us on all the socials. Just search for Big Fat Snare Drum and you will find us. The show is edited in part using iZotope RX Audio Editor. It's amazing, so go check that out at iZotope.com. And thanks again to Gunnar Olsen for the theme music. Bye!